There is no truth in lack. And because there is no truth in it, it holds no lawful power. Yet many live beneath it as though it were a sovereign force. They fear it. They name it. They obey it. And worst of all, they speak it. You say, I am lacking. And the law says, then let lack be your structure. You say, I don't have enough. And the law replies, then enough shall be withheld. You think these words are expressions of honesty, but under spiritual law they are not honesty. They are perjury. They are false testimony issued by one who has forgotten who they are and what realm they live in. I do not speak from comfort. I speak from law. And law does not listen to stories. It does not feel sorry for your circumstances. It does not examine your past. It simply executes your word. Your word is your ruling. Your speech is your government. And if your words declare shortage, then shortage is enforced, not by evil, not by punishment, but by the precision of a law that cannot contradict itself. You are not judged by appearances, you are judged by agreement, and agreement begins in the mouth. When you say, this is my reality, the law accepts it, not because it is true, but because you said so. You spoke from fear, and so fear became the frame of your supply. You spoke from need, and so need became your climate. Not because heaven decreed it, but because you did. Lack does not exist in divine mind. It cannot be found in the structure of spirit. There is no ledger of insufficiency in the storehouse of the absolute. If you encounter it, it is not because God sent it. It is because your speech broke alignment. Your mouth moved out of jurisdiction. Divine law is precise. It is not sentimental. It does not respond to emotion, nor does it interpret tone. It responds only to truth. And truth is not based on what you see. It is based on what is permanent in the realm of spirit. If you build your belief on appearance, you will live a life of shifting conditions. But if you build your speech on truth, you will override every appearance that rises to challenge you. Many ask, if there is no truth in lack, then why do I feel it? I say to you, you feel it because you affirmed it. And the more you affirm what is not true, the more the body reacts. The more the world conforms, the more the atmosphere bends to reflect what you have spoken. You are not a victim of sensation. You are the author of the system that keeps repeating it. You must understand, the law does not require your belief. It requires your alignment. You can be terrified and still aligned if your word is clean. You can be doubtful and still under grace if your tongue does not betray you. But the moment your speech contradicts the higher law, you exit the courtroom of truth and enter the prison of manifestation by appearance. What is appearance? It is the echo of past speech. It is the visible residue of yesterday's words. What you see now is never original. It is only the consequence of what was named, permitted, agreed to. And so, if you fight appearance without changing speech, you fight shadows with bare hands. You say, but I didn't mean it. That does not matter. The subconscious does not wait for clarity of emotion. It waits for clarity of command. The law is not persuaded by your tone of voice. It responds to the vibration of conviction. When you said, it's always like this, the law said, then let it be always. When you said, I'll never get ahead, the law made a note, and it remembered. What you repeat becomes your ruling. What you call permanent becomes established. What you allow yourself to speak becomes the blueprint of your environment. This is not superstition, it is order. I am not asking you to become optimistic. I am commanding you to become lawful. You must learn to shut your mouth when it trembles. You must learn to say nothing rather than say something false. You must learn to wait until truth returns to your lips, because until it does, your speech is treason. You live in a kingdom governed by divine architecture. This is not a kingdom of opinion, of emotional release, of casual commentary. It is a kingdom of creative decree. You were not given the gift of speech to describe your fears. You were given the gift of speech to authorize heaven on earth. So what have you authorized? What have you licensed through repetition? What has your mouth signed into operation without review? Many stand in prayer saying, I need. But need is not a legal entry in the court of spirit. Supply is not moved by desperation. It is moved by alignment with principle. I do not say these things to inspire you. I say them to correct your jurisdiction. You are speaking lack in a kingdom that has no lack. You are declaring voids in a structure that only holds fullness. And by doing so, you do not invoke help, you trigger disorder. You think lack is your condition. But truly, lack is your crime, not against God, who cannot be offended, but against the integrity of your own spiritual design. When I say there is no truth in lack, I mean it literally. Lack is a lie, a convincing, emotional, culturally accepted lie. But it is a lie nonetheless, and your first act of spiritual maturity is to stop repeating it as though it were law. Stop defending your shortage. Stop narrating your scarcity. Stop submitting legal filings to the subconscious that state, "This is who I am, this is what I deserve, this is what life always gives me." Withdraw those filings. Revoke those decrees. Speak nothing until you are ready to speak lawfully. Because the law is not waiting for your clarity, it is waiting for your precision. And the moment your tongue speaks what is true, what has always been true, what will always be true, lack will vanish. Not because it was solved, but because it was never real. There is no truth in lack. And the moment you speak from that place, not with emotion, not with fear, not with strain, but with alignment, everything that does not belong to truth will begin to leave you. That is not comfort, that is not hope, that is law. If the law is true, and lack is not, then why does lack appear so often? Why does it feel so convincing? Why does it sit beside you in the evening and whisper in your ear like a fact? Why does it follow you from month to month, job to job, decision to decision, as though it were a loyal shadow? Because lack is not a substance, it is a label. And once you give something a label, the law treats it as legal. You called the silence in your bank account poverty. You called the empty calendar failure. You called the delay punishment. And the moment you did, what was simply a fluctuation became a sentence. You sentenced your reality with your mouth. Nothing has power until you name it. Nothing holds weight until you define it. A temporary condition, when left unnamed, passes. But when you assign it meaning, when you say, "This is what I am now," you no longer experience a wave. You experience bondage. Do you understand? You are not held down by events. You are held down by interpretation. Lack is not your condition. It is your conclusion. Many people have walked through the same landscape as you. Some found treasure, some found emptiness. What changed? Their speech, their identification, their willingness to call what they saw by its true name, or their fear which led them to mislabel it. Let me tell you this, a shadow on the wall cannot hurt you. But if you call it a thief, you will respond as though it were armed. You will barricade yourself, flee your purpose, abandon joy, sabotage your decisions, because you have mistaken an appearance for a truth. And the law does not question your definitions, it supports them. This is why lack survives, not because it is real, but because it is constantly reaffirmed. You keep checking your account. You keep describing your needs. You keep rehearsing your limitations in conversation, in private thought, in nervous silence. And repetition, even of a lie, becomes dominant in the subconscious. Lack is not sustained by the economy. It is sustained by familiarity. You have seen it before, so you expect it. You expect it, so you name it. You name it, so the law delivers more of it. This is not oppression. This is momentum. This is what happens when you align more with history than with heaven. I must say it plainly, most people do not live under law. They live under suggestion. They are hypnotized by patterns. They are seduced by proof. And they call it realism. But realism is not a virtue. It is just allegiance to what you have seen before. And nothing in the structure of divine law says your past must be repeated. Only the mouth repeats it. Only your private commentary binds you to the loop. What if you simply said nothing? What if you refused to comment on what you saw until your words were ready to match the truth? What if you withheld judgment, refused complaint, rejected the old vocabulary, and waited until the tongue was clean? You do not need to declare abundance with fire. You only need to stop calling shortage your home. Because lack does not fight back. It simply waits for your affirmation. If you stop affirming it, it cannot hold form. Think of lack like dust on a mirror. It does not come from the mirror. It comes from the air you let settle. You do not smash the mirror to see clearly. You clear what never belonged there, and the reflection corrects itself. So too with your life. You are not broken. Your vision is blurred. You have called things by the wrong names for too long. You called process failure. You called waiting abandonment. You called transition ruin. And because you named them so, your emotions obeyed. Your nervous system obeyed. Your results obeyed. because words are not decorations. They are instructions. The invisible realm listens. It does not argue. It does not filter. It does not explain. It receives and fulfills. So what are you giving it? Are you giving it confusion? Are you giving it recycled definitions from your upbringing? Are you giving it emotionally charged labels that do not reflect divine law? You say, but I can't lie to myself, and I say, then stop lying by calling lack real. You have told yourself 1,000 falsehoods and called them fact because they matched your pain. But pain is not the measure of truth. Law is, and law has never once recorded lack as valid. The absence of money does not mean the absence of provision. The delay in timing does not mean denial of destiny. The silence of results does not mean the heavens are closed. You are simply in the space between your old declaration and your new one. And if you hold your tongue steady and refuse to speak the lie again, the gap will close. The illusion will collapse. The fog will lift. And truth, quiet, unemotional, stable, will rise. Not because you fought, but because you stopped cooperating with the counterfeit. That is all lack is, a counterfeit structure made of recycled labels. And the only way to remove it is to revoke your permission. You do not have to fight lack. You only have to withdraw your loyalty. Stop speaking like it belongs. Stop narrating it like it is noble. Stop tolerating it with humble language that dishonors the law. Say only what is lawful. Define only what matches the structure of spirit. And when you cannot, say nothing. For even silence is more obedient than a well-worded lie. In the realm of spirit, nothing begins until it is spoken. Nothing becomes legally active until it passes the gate of the tongue. The mouth is not simply an instrument of sound. It is the seal of the soul. Whatever it stamps, the law must execute. Whatever it confirms, the subconscious must obey. This is why you are not punished for your circumstances. You are only held to account for your confessions. People often ask me, if God is for me, why am I still in lack? And I answer them plainly, because your tongue is not for you. Your mouth is still aligned with appearances. Your speech still bends to emotion. Your declarations still mirror your moods instead of your divine identity. The law is not concerned with how you feel. It is not activated by how long you've waited, or how hard you've tried, or how deeply you've hoped. It is moved only by what you say under conviction. And conviction is not loud. It is not desperate. It is simply certain. When you speak from certainty, even if your body trembles, even if your hands are empty, the law begins to reorganize the invisible to match your ruling. But if you speak from confusion, if you confess contradiction, if you narrate delay, the law will suspend all progress. Not because it hates you, not because you're unworthy, but because you broke the order. You stamped a new decree with your own lips. And so the universe must pause until it knows what you really mean. The tongue is the clarifier of all energy. Until you say it, heaven cannot move. Until you seal it, earth cannot comply. This is not an abstract principle, it is legal structure. Let me show you the danger of misused speech. A man may pray for provision, he may write affirmations, visualize abundance, study every book on prosperity, but if he steps out of his house and says to his neighbor, money just doesn't come like it used to, he has voided the order. That one sentence, spoken with conviction, overrides hours of spiritual work. Why? Because the law honors the final word. And the final word is always the one you seal aloud. You think you're just venting. You think you're just sharing your reality. But under divine jurisdiction, there is no such thing as casual speech. All speech is evidence. All speech is submission. All speech is a vote for what will be formed next. So if your tongue is careless, your life will be unstable. If your mouth is confused, your results will be inconsistent. If your declarations are half-truths, your manifestations will be half-built and prone to collapse. This is why I do not tolerate honest expression if it violates the law. There is nothing honest about calling a lie your identity. There is nothing noble about repeating lack like a badge. It is not humility. It is misalignment disguised as transparency. You were not given a tongue to describe shadows. You were given a tongue to announce structure, to call into form what does not yet appear, but is already lawful in spirit. So I ask you, what do you say when no one is listening? What comes out of your mouth when you stub your toe on disappointment? What phrases do you whisper in the dark when delay stretches long? Those are your true decrees, not the affirmations you memorize, not the phrases you post on your wall, but the sentences you release when you think it doesn't matter. It always matters. There is no such thing as a spiritually neutral sentence. Every phrase is a gate. Every word is a hammer. Every sigh, every repetition, every subtle joke about your own inadequacy is a file sent to the inner court of creation. And once received, it is reviewed and executed. Not because the law is cruel, but because it is incapable of confusion. You say, but I'm just being real. And I say, then your reality will remain exactly where it is. Because reality does not change by description, it changes by decree. The tongue was not given to echo, it was given to govern. And until you speak as a governor, you will live as a reaction. You may say, well, I didn't mean it. But the law does not wait for your intent. It waits for your imprint. And your words, especially the ones you speak often, carry the most weight. Not because they are true, but because you gave them power through repetition. Let me be clear. You are not suffering because you spoke once in weakness. You are suffering because you stamped the same lie over and over again and called it identity. You said, I'm always broke. You said, I'm cursed when it comes to timing. You said, I guess I just have bad luck. And the law, unable to argue, unable to delay, simply obeyed. That is how powerful your mouth is. Not because you are special, but because the law is obedient. It obeys even the misaligned. It fulfills even the destructive, so long as the speech is consistent. This is why I train the tongue before anything else. Not the hands, not the habits. The tongue. Because once the mouth is clean, the rest will follow. But if the mouth remains rogue, no matter what else you try, the structure will collapse again and again. You are not poor. You are just licensed as poor, by your own voice. You are not stuck. You are just sealed into a pattern, by the sentences you think are harmless. You are not invisible. You are just unnamed, because you have failed to say what is true of you in heaven. And so the mouth becomes the seal. Either it locks the lie into permanence, or it releases the truth with force. You choose which one. Every day, you choose. Order is not a feeling. It is not clarity. It is not even peace. Order is a structure that exists whether you see it or not. It is the alignment of your word with the divine pattern. And the moment your word returns to the structure, what you call chaos begins to dissolve. Not because it was destroyed, but because it was never allowed to remain. The disorder you experience is not punishment. It is simply the consequence of spiritual contradiction. You said what was not true, and the law, being incapable of error, followed your command. What you live in is not proof of reality. It is the outworking of misalignment. The house is not falling apart. You simply built a door where there should have been a wall. And the law, being lawful, let it fall through. So how do you restore order? Not by fixing appearances. Not by working harder. Not by chasing answers. You restore divine order by returning your tongue to the jurisdiction of heaven. When your word is restored, the structure begins to rebuild. On its own, without your effort, without your control. Because the law does not need your help. It only needs your agreement. You must understand this. The law does not resist correction. It waits for it. The moment you stop speaking error, the universe stops enforcing it. The moment you say one sentence in alignment, the momentum begins to shift. You say, but I've said the wrong thing for years. That may be true, but law does not count history. It responds to the present decree. One sentence spoken in alignment with spiritual truth carries more power than 10 years of confusion. If, and only if, you stop contradicting it. Let me speak clearly. The goal is not to affirm endlessly. The goal is to speak once in truth, and then to seal it with silence. You do not need to chant. You do not need to feel high. You do not need to decorate your words. You need to stop reversing your own rulings with your mouth. After you say what is lawful, say nothing more unless it agrees with the truth. Because one lawful decree, followed by 3 days of doubt and contradiction, dissolves the structure you just reestablished. This is not about motivation. This is about discipline. Let me tell you what spiritual discipline is. It is not praying more. It is not fasting. It is not studying endlessly. It is the courage to speak only what the law can honor, and to be quiet when you cannot. Your silence may be the most lawful thing you do today. If you cannot speak from divine alignment, do not speak at all. If your next sentence would violate the order you just restored, close your mouth. Let silence carry the force of obedience. Because divine law responds not only to your words but also to your restraint. You think you are doing nothing when you're silent. But in the kingdom of spirit, restraint is an action. When you pause before you speak, you are refusing to re-enter disorder. You are refusing to pollute the alignment you just activated. You would not sign a contract and immediately scribble over it. You would not declare a wedding vow and take it back an hour later. You would not issue a royal decree and cancel it in a marketplace whisper. Then do not cancel your lawful declarations with passing phrases of fear. Let me give you an instruction, not a suggestion. Say aloud, once and only once, without pressure and without performance. I now withdraw every declaration I've made in fear. I cancel every phrase that has misrepresented my truth. I erase every sentence that gave form to falsehood. I return my word to divine law, and from this moment on, I speak only what the law can honor. Then be still. Let your silence speak for you. Let it say, this decree shall not be revoked. Let it say, the ruling has been made. Let it say, I am no longer a double-minded speaker. Because a double mouth cannot produce a single harvest. You say, but what if lack comes again? Then you say nothing. You don't panic. You don't confess. You don't narrate the appearance. You hold your posture. You speak only what aligns with law, or you say nothing until your speech is cleansed. The test of obedience is not found in your highest moments. It is found in your weakest ones. When every nerve wants to complain and you say, no, I will not reintroduce disorder into this house. This is how order is restored, not by force, but by spiritual legality. Not by emotion, but by jurisdiction. The law is not here to favor you. It is here to obey what is spoken in alignment. That is why restoration is instant the moment alignment returns. Nothing is waiting on your effort. Everything is waiting on your speech and your willingness to stop reversing it. You ask, when will things change? And I answer you, when you stop renegotiating the decree. You do not need the universe to move. You need to stop contradicting it. Once the order is spoken, the invisible takes care of itself. You will not see it immediately. You will not feel it dramatically. But under the surface, things will begin to release because your words have ceased to trap them. You do not need to build again. You only need to stop destroying. You do not need to manifest harder. You only need to stop testifying falsely. Your good does not delay. It waits only for your mouth to stop reversing the order you just restored. Speak once, seal it in silence, and let the house rebuild. That is how divine order returns. Not with effort, but with reverent authority. When divine order has been restored, there is nothing more to do. There is nothing more to ask for. There is nothing more to analyze. The structure has been reestablished. The ruling has been issued. The law has heard. And what has been heard will be fulfilled, not by chance, not by negotiation, but by design. But here is what I must warn you. Most people destroy the harvest after they've already planted the seed. They speak rightly for one day, then doubt for the next 3. They declare truth in the morning and contradict it by evening. They ask for alignment, then sabotage it with their commentary. They do not know how to remain in order. They do not know how to trust what has already begun moving. Once you have spoken in alignment, the next step is not to chase the evidence. The next step is to remain sealed. You are not waiting for signs. You are not scanning the horizon. You are not checking your bank account for proof. The order has already been signed, and spiritual law never fails to execute what is lawfully declared and lawfully sealed. You must act as one whose request has been received. You must carry yourself not as a beggar, but as a governor who has issued a lawful command and now expects compliance, not with panic, not with obsession, but with inner stillness. Do not open the sacred container with idle speculation. Do not re-enter the courtroom with new filings of doubt. Let what has been spoken work in the unseen. Let the law do its job without your interference. This is where most fail, not in the declaration, but in the aftermath. They ruin the decree with their commentary. They explain it to others in soft terms. They dilute its power with hypotheticals. They begin to ask, what if it doesn't work? What if I said it wrong? What if I'm not worthy? Let me be clear. Once the law has heard lawful speech, it does not review your feelings. It does not wait for emotional stability. It does not consult your history, it executes. The only thing that can delay the fulfillment of law is contradiction. The only thing that can reintroduce chaos is your return to unlawful language. So hold the line. Do not speak unless your mouth is in agreement. Do not act unless your spirit is in alignment. You may not see results in the first hour. That does not mean nothing is moving. You are not responsible for how the structure unfolds. You are only responsible for holding the vibration that began the movement, and that vibration is not emotional. It is legal. You spoke law. Now behave as one who did. Your words were not suggestions, they were rulings. Your declaration was not a preference, it was an assignment. And what you assigned, the spiritual machinery is now assembling, out of sight, beneath the surface, around the edges of your life, in places you are not even watching. Do not damage the process by running ahead of it with worry. Do not dismantle the new order by speaking the vocabulary of the old realm. You are no longer allowed to speak like a slave. You are no longer permitted to sound like the old version of yourself. The law does not recognize that voice anymore. It has been voided. If you must speak, speak as one who has been seated. If you must act, act as one who has been answered. If you must wait, wait with the dignity of one whose decree is already being fulfilled. You are not in trial, you are in execution. The sentence has been passed, the House has heard the order, and everything not in alignment must now make room. You do not need to justify your decree, you only need to stop undoing it. When the doors begin to open, do not hesitate. Step through them with the calm of someone who knew this was coming. Because in truth, it was not coming. It was summoned. When people ask how it happened, do not explain. Just say the order was restored. That is enough. When you feel the temptation to dramatize your story, to revisit the struggle, to identify with the delay, remember, that person no longer exists. That voice has been retired, that vibration has been deactivated, and the law does not go backward. It moves forward with the last ruling. And if your last ruling was true, then forward is where you must remain. You will begin to feel it, not with fireworks, but with subtle rearrangements. A conversation here, a cancellation there. A new opening where once there was blockage. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. Do not shout them. Do not chase them. Honor them with quiet gratitude, because true authority never needs to prove itself. Now hear me as I end this teaching. You are no longer who you were when you began this process. You are no longer a petitioner. You are no longer a wanderer. You are no longer one who begs the law for relief. You are now one who has spoken with precision, one who has restored order, one whose word is no longer reckless, one whose mouth is aligned with heaven. And from this position, you will see new structures appear, not because you worked harder, but because you stopped breaking the architecture with your tongue. You will not chase abundance. It will recognize the jurisdiction you now carry. You will not plead for favor. It will arrive, drawn by the scent of lawful speech. You will not strive. You will speak, and having spoken, you will hold your ground. That is how manifestation becomes inevitable, not by striving, but by spiritual credibility. And spiritual credibility begins with one act: to speak once in alignment and never speak against it again.